The United States has now passed, in January of this new year, $30 trillion as our national debt in this country. That's how much the government has borrowed. And I want to celebrate, if that's the right word, passing the $30 trillion mark by explaining what this is about, something which the mass media, who love to report on the number 30 trillion as if it had magic attached to it, don't do. Here we go. The United States is stunning in its refusal as a government to tax corporations and the rich. Not only does it tax them less than in most other countries, certainly most other advanced industrial countries, but we have witnessed a stunning thing in these last 2 or 3 years. It begins December of 2017 when Donald Trump's government hands to corporations and the rich the biggest tax cut they've ever had, coming at the end of the 30 years in which wealth in this country was redistributed from the middle and the bottom to those people, who then got a tax cut on top of it. Never has a tax cut gone to so few who needed it so little. But they got it because that's what their president was there for. Consequently, in the last 2 years, 2020, 2021, the deficit in this country, the difference between what the government had to spend to deal with the depression that we were close to deal with COVID, those extra monies that had to be spent came together with the cut in tax revenues because of what Trump had done. And the only way the government could spend to get us out of the depression, to get us out of the disaster of COVID, was by borrowing the money they no longer taxed from corporations and the rich. And here comes the most important point. From whom does the government borrow the bulk of the money that it borrows? Not all of it, but the bulk of it. Answer: from corporations and the rich. Most of you watching and listening to this program have never been visited by someone from the government asking you to lend the government some money. And I hate to tell you this, but that's because you don't have enough money to make the visit worthwhile. The visits happen, but they go to the big banks, the big corporations, the big insurance companies who have big bundles of money to lend to the government. So the people the government doesn't tax, corporations and the rich, are the ones it goes to borrow the money. And why does it have to borrow the money? Because it didn't tax them, which means that the corporations and the rich got the best of everything. They didn't have to pay taxes and instead lent that money to the government, which has to pay it back. And while you wait for it to be paid back, you get interest every year. This is a boondoggle for the rich, which it always has been. Not only that, the 30 trillion that we now owe, that's going to be a burden. We're all going to have to pay taxes in the years to come to pay the interest to the corporations and the rich who didn't have to pay taxes but got to lend that money to the government instead. We're going to pay that back, and we're going to pay the interest. And we're going to listen to Republicans and conservative Democrats like Senator Joe Manchin tell us that with such a large deficit, we can't afford to rebuild our country, to upgrade our infrastructure, to build back better, or anything else. What a wonderful gimmick these deficits are, this national debt is. And here's one more beneficiary I don't want you to miss from this boondoggle for corporations and the rich. When you don't tax them and your government has to spend money, like to avoid a depression, like to deal with COVID, it has to borrow from anybody who lends to it, not just corporations and the rich. And you know who else lends to the United States government? Countries overseas that have accumulated tons of dollars because they sell stuff to the United States, but they don't want to buy anything we produce anymore. Two biggest countries in the world like that, China and Japan. So what do they do with the dollars? Yeah, they lend it to the United States government, which has to borrow because it won't tax corporations and the rich.